Can we talk about Tom Pidcock? Because
Yes.
not only is he the person that most people have been interested in discussing off the back of the article, but what's going on with him within the team actually crystallizes a lot of the issues and things that wouldn't have happened back when they were successful.
So I think that what we've been talking about thus far in this episode is essentially the inputs for the chaos, and now we're getting to the outputs, right? So like in the last, because the Pidcock stuff has fundamentally only been an issue in 2024, which is on the very very end of this decline, which I would argue is five years long or so. But it is these days the biggest news item, and it is the sort of the most obvious glaring, again, output result of the chaos that is internal. So let's talk Pidcock.
I find the narrative around Pidcock really interesting because I think he's coming across, and maybe it is through his own back, he's coming across as a bit of a petulant brat at the moment, a bit of a child. I really like Tom. I do. I really, really like him. He's cheeky. He's cocksure. He's got that arrogance I think you need to succeed. But honestly, I really, really like him. I think he's a nice kid, and I think he's good in the right team environment. The problem that's from looking from the outside in and from people telling us, the problem which I can gather is that he's been told that he's amazing. He's been told his ego has been allowed to inflate, and that is Ineos's fault because they've got this athlete-centered approach. The athlete is right. Whatever the athlete wants, the athlete gets, and that's meant that he's got his own way of time and time.
Is that new?
Again. I don't know, but I think if we go up, and I'm trying not to.
It doesn't sound like a Sky thing to me.
But I feel like he hasn't been managed properly. There's been no management. You know, if let's talk about Man United for 10 seconds here. When they had Alex Ferguson as manager for whatever it was, 26 years, they had huge egos, huge superstars, but they wouldn't get their own way. No football player was bigger than the club. And this was the same.
Brailsford and those guys. Yeah.
Correct. Whereas right now, Pidcock is bigger than Ineos. But that's not Pidcock's fault. That's the cycling team's fault. I think Tom is a really nice guy and he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
But he's been mismanaged.
Well, I think also if you're looking at, and I'm always inclined to be on the rider side instead of the teams, because the riders rarely are affecting the teams in that negative way compared to the power that the teams can and coaches can have over the riders. So if you look at it from Tom Pidcock's perspective, Ineos were always going to be the team that signed him, right? They were the British team. He was the next guy. Ineos were always going to pay him more to get him there than any other team, because that was the thing for ages, is that if you're a British talent, you would get an extra however many, maybe hundreds of thousands to sign for Ineos, because you could charge them that because they wanted the British talent. So Tom Pidcock comes to Ineos, is like, well, look, I've seen what's happened to Bradley Wiggins, Chris Froome, Geraint Thomas, riders who didn't necessarily fit the exact bill from the outset of Tour de France winners. So Pidcock, who's also this kind of in-between, he does a few different things. He's like, well, great, this is my pathway. I'll win some of the mountain bike stuff, but then eventually I'll be on the path to becoming a Tour de France winner. He's won some big bike races now. He's shown his talent to just below that sort of level of being a Tour de France contender. And in the meantime, everything is sort of collapsing around him. You've got John Allett, the CEO, giving like 40-minute monologues at team camp, talking about how they're all got to be a tribe after the team is basically fucking everything up for a lot of people, and all the staff are leaving. He's like, no, we've got to really dig in and protect each other. And Pidcock's there, and as we reported, raised hands like, so you're basically saying if we don't get in line, then we're kicked out. And Alex like, that's exactly what I'm saying. He's like, well, great, like this isn't kind of what I signed up for. And you can look at it from the other point of view, where Ineos now have a rider on a very long-term, very expensive contract, and we'll get to the bonus stuff in a minute, who is not inclined to play ball and do kind of what they want, and who's courageous and independent enough to sort of demand what he feels he needs to win bike races, which is what he's paid to do, right? And the person who signed up on that massive contract was Dave Brailsford. So was that a case of Dave Brailsford hoping that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, it's just the next guy in this treadmill of winners? Or was it a mistake in not realizing Pidcock's character, which is definitely different to Geraint and Chris Froome? And how much is that then hampered the team because you've got the best paid rider who won't toe the party line and won't perform in the way that they would want a best paid rider to perform? It's a fascinating sort of example of the change in management at the team. This would never have happened in a Dave Brailsford 2016 Team Sky.
No.
We saw it when like Bradley Wiggins got moved on. Froome got moved on mid Tour de France to Geraint Thomas. And Froome, partly because of his character, kind of just accepted it. Imagine if that happened now in any other team. We saw it in the Vuelta with Jumbo-Visma.
Sky did tamp down Froome the year that Wiggins won. There
was that. But you know what I mean?
I think it's a specious argument because I think that Wiggins won the final time trial that year handily over Froome anyway, but there was a mountain stage there where they had to stick a lasso around Froome and tell him not to go anywhere. So that was also like an attempt to win the first Tour de France with a truly British rider. Wherever Froome is from, unclear to me.
Yeah, but in terms of man management, right? Like that's the fact that they managed to pull that off a number of times is crazy, and the fact that they can't now keep a lid on much smaller issues. Like
let's talk about
Lombardia stuff.
Well, so we got a couple here. So the Cummings stuff.
Yeah, the Cummings stuff. We haven't even got to the Cummings stuff.
You guys spoke with a whole. So this is I think it was the most sort of obvious and biggest part of the news cycle all summer. In terms of like what's going on with Pidcock and what's going on with Ineos, and it was this sort of flashpoint, and we never got an explanation for it. So you guys spoke with a lot of people in and around this situation. What happened?
There's a lot of theories, and I think there's a lot of half-truths and truths. Basically, Cummings doesn't like Pidcock. Pidcock doesn't like Cummings, and the team have chosen Pidcock's side. I think that is basically the truth.
Which gets back to what Jonny was saying, this sort of, you put the rider above everybody.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think most of the time a star rider is going to come out ahead of a director.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's going to happen pretty much all the time. But the strange thing was the sort of lack of communication. Right. And it gets back to general dysfunction within the organization. And apparently Cummings not even really knowing, like getting a good explanation for why he was getting removed from the Tour de France. And then we get to Lombardia, right? Which is sort of post Cummings. Cummings is gone. He's headed to another team. And we're on the eve of Lombardia. And Pidcock gets yanked off of the start list and announces this via Instagram. And what happened there?
That ruined my Friday night. That's what happened there.
We heard he got fired. He didn't actually get fired.
No.
But he did get yanked off the start list for a team that he's now apparently staying on. So that was him trying to advocate for an exit, or an exit almost happening, or Ineos trying to make an exit happen. What do we think happened here?
I think from speaking to a current team staff a few days after that, there was a lot of anger in the team, and that seemed to make people angry who otherwise weren't angry. So like riders who usually wouldn't really speak about it because, they've only been there a year or two. There's no point making their current employees pissed off. That really got up a lot of people's back. And I think that brought together quite a lot of factions, actually, because I think most people had sympathy for Cummings at the team and people outside of the team. A lot of people had sympathy for Pidcock just because of how talented he is. But then the fact that they'd kicked Cummings out 3 months before, then kicked Pidcock out, it amounted to this shit show where the management clearly didn't know which side to take anymore, and they just completely lost control. And to use a football reference, they completely lost control of the dressing room.
The team bus. They lost
the team bus. There we go. I knew there must be something. The Death Star bus. But I think that played out in open was everything you needed to know about Ineos, which that they just lost control. There was no management anymore.
Well, the message that management through both of those episodes have sent to both support staff and riders is, if you kind of cross us or end up on a bad side, then that's it. Like, With Cummings, you're telling all the staff that, well, if you get on the wrong side of like one of our top riders, then you're out the door. And then what they say to all the riders with the Pidcock stuff is that, like, it doesn't matter if like how prepared you are for this race or all the other stuff, like politics will get in the way of you being on the start line. So what message does that send? If you're any rider, any staff, you look at that and you're like, this is probably not good for me at some point in my time with this team. It unites everyone against a common enemy. And it's just the communication thing is the thing that baffles me, and I'm sure baffles you guys because we have to deal with it so much. But the fact that within the team they didn't know what was going on with Cummings a lot of the time, or didn't know what was going on with the Pidcock Lombardia stuff, it's just bizarre. I've never read or spoken to like PR communications people in that granular level of like how to do the jobs. But the reason this story has become so interesting and multifaceted is because we've never got answers to anything because nothing has ever been said. And so then what that allows is theories to take place and like set in. And then what's happened is a lot of the theories have then turned out to be kind of true because there's only so many dots you can connect. So it's just wild. It's completely different to how a lot of other cycling teams, organizations operate. And I'm in part thankful for it because it makes it all more interesting. But at the same time, it's just infernally frustrating because you kind of just want to know, right? You just want like a semblance of an answer.